Hello. Do you remember last week's video about the karma of the idiots? This channel's biggest hit, already at more than 650,000 views and still growing. Well, the thing is that I missed, or I didn't see it, obviously, because this reaction you're about to see happened afterwards. There's an earlier one I think is better than any we saw in that video. I'm going to save it for the end. Let's focus on the latest Real Madrid news, which is what we care about. And this is what Fabrizio Romano has published in the last few hours, expanded with information from Iñaki Angulo, also from this morning. Well, what Fabrizio says is that Madrid is already talking to Manchester City about Rodri. That is the first time they've talked about the Madrid-born player, and that, well, Madrid is willing to pay more than 50 million euros. Iñaki goes a little further. He says that it's already been 55 in a first offer that Manchester City has rejected, expecting that Manchester City would reject it, as it couldn't be any other way. There's always a first offer that gets rejected. The same thing happened with Diomande. By the way, as an aside, we'll say that the Diomande situation isn't exactly stalled. Well, it's somewhat stalled, of course. We were expecting the official announcement to be made already. There are some loose ends there. It's very typical to talk about loose ends in negotiations, but, well, apparently that's the case. Yes, it's going to be done in the next few hours. It's already settled, but the official announcement is still missing to reach an agreement on those final numbers, which is a much shorter road than the one that still has to be traveled. Still with Rodri, even though, we've been talking about the slowness, which doesn't affect or isn't a concern in this signing. Now that these conversations have started, they want to finish as soon as possible. They want to get all the signings done as soon as possible, mainly to have peace of mind, and also because negotiations are always exhausting and we don't want to spend the whole month of August dealing with this story. But anyway, it's very close, especially because Rodri has already said no to Paris Saint-Germain. He didn't even need to say no because Rodri has already said yes to Madrid, and he is, well, perfectly in agreement with Madrid's conditions. Mind you, he's earning less than what he would have made with a renewal at Manchester City. But his idea for a while now, and in fact, he said it in statements, right, is to come back home, to return to Madrid. When they've asked him about Real Madrid, the best club in the world, it's very hard to say no, blah, blah, blah. It was even before the World Cup, and that's it. I mean, right? The only thing that could obviously make it worse is if a couple of clubs come in wanting to pay more money. Well, yeah, maybe City asks for a little more, but I think that's how things are going to be. If they've rejected a 55 million offer, if that's true, I think it'll be between 60 and 65. And Madrid won't want to pay more for a player whose contract ends next year. I think they're going to reach an agreement soon. Today, a day of returns, Hendrik and Rudiger are back. And, with that uncertainty, the German doesn't really have any, honestly. He just renewed for 1 year. He knows it's his last year at Real Madrid, and he's grateful for what the club has given him. A Champions League title, and above all, that trust that, despite his injuries and his physical condition, and that he makes us a little bit nervous. Less worrying than Militao, because Militao has had more complicated issues. Well, the club has valued this man's experience, the fact that when he's been fit, he's performed, he's always performed, aside from his lapses, and now he gets another year. And about Hendrik, well, of course, here are those variations, those variables we talked about in the last few videos, that he sees how Diomande is being signed, that he's not going to have, that no, he's not a starter for Real Madrid, whatever Mourinho has promised him, and the trust that Hendrik has in what Mourinho has promised him. Because, of course, they also told Hendrik nice things at the beginning. Xavi Alonso and Ancelotti, look how it turned out. The kid ended up having to leave. Hey, he made the most of his time at Lyon, and let's see here if Hendrik wants to leave. And I would totally understand it given how things are turning out. In one of the craziest summers for Real Madrid, fortunately, the one where they're strengthening the most. Well, man, you have to understand the player, right? I think he fits in at Madrid, but not as an undisputed starter, not at all. Especially if Diamond is there, because Hendrik on the right isn't as dependable and doesn't deliver as much as Diamond on the right. where in Germany, even though it was just 1 year, 1 season, he has shown, or at least shows, or at least suggests that he can do very well there. Hendrik is a footballer who's more of a penalty box player, always closer to the goal, but I don't really see it. With so much movement down the right wing, it doesn't mean he wouldn't do well there. Maybe he would be a great substitute for Diomande, but it's another thing whether the Brazilian wants to be anyone's substitute here in this Madrid. What has also been talked about in the last few hours is about César Palacios, who would join Gonzalo García as another Fulham target. We've already talked about Gonzalo. It's that offer that the English club, now managed by Álvaro Arbeloa, is presumably making him. That's definitely a big plus for these young players who have been with Arbeloa at some point, not just this past year with Real Madrid's first team, but also in the youth divisions. And of course, they're offering you 5 million euros net per season on a 5-year contract. We mentioned in the previous video that in that case, Madrid would have to secure something like they've done with Nico Paz, but it's really hard to turn down. Even if Mourinho likes you, even if Mourinho trusts you, you're not going to take Mbappe's spot, which is where Gonzalo would fit in, unless Vinicius leaves, Mbappe plays on the left, and Mourinho says, hey, I need a number 9, it has to be you, and so on. I just think that in that case, he could also stay as a substitute, because maybe next year or the following one, Fulham could show up too, or another team could come along and offer you something really good, obviously at the top level. And you could wait another year to see how this one turns out. And if, Mourinho uses you a little more than Xabi Alonso or Arbeloa did, actually, it's curious, right, that Arbeloa wants to take him, despite giving him few minutes at Madrid, even Arbeloa. But as we mentioned in the last video, being the coach of Real Madrid, it has those things. In fact, Arbeloa, in a final press conference this season, said that he would have liked to give more minutes to certain players, not just one player, but he couldn't do it. But, Gonzalo is a different case, and now they're starting to talk about numbers. The most optimistic estimates talk about 60 million from the English club. They have the money, they could pay it. That's the least you could expect for the top scorer of the last Club World Cup and a player who has already proven himself at Real Madrid. But they would start at 30, somewhere between 30 and 60. The case of César Palacios would obviously cost much less. And here you could definitely apply the idea of selling him for 50% in order to buy him back later. And César Palacios, they say Mourinho loves him, and whenever we've seen him, we've all loved him too, I think. He's a footballer with a lot of ability. As a playmaker with attacking presence and exquisite ball control, great first touch. Look, very different from Mastantuno's, who we'll talk about in a moment. You can really see how much Mastantuno struggles with his first touch, right? That's been one of the things that has hurt him the most at Real Madrid. But I really like this kid, and it would be a shame. Look, there are players coming out of the academy who, for example, in terms of the way Spain plays, the Spanish national team, world champions in midfield, they would fit perfectly into that definition of a Spanish player. Technically skilled and combines well. Thiago Pitar, César Palacios, one will stay, Thiago, and the other could leave so he can get some playing time elsewhere. And like many others, to be able to develop and then make it to Real Madrid. I don't view César Palacios' situation as negative, since I think it follows the 50% formula, plus there's also Franco Mastantuno's case. Guillermo Rey from The Athletic was saying that the player would like to return to River, and that, River Plate would be delighted with that. With the option, but on loan, of course. What's happening? Is it that Madrid is refusing to loan him out again to even if it's his own club and his comfort zone? That's the problem, of course, going back to your comfort zone. Isn't it, from Real Madrid's point of view, seen as a step backwards? Absolutely. If he comes to Europe, it's to keep developing here. And so that, in a year, we can think that Madrid didn't make a mistake paying 60 million. Honestly, Madrid did make a mistake paying 60 million. Of course, because it's too much for what this kid has shown. Luis Enrique and Paris Saint-Germain were after him. He fooled all of us a little bit, quote unquote, because he's a footballer that when you see him driving the ball, he has quality striking it. We saw him with River, of course, and in the Argentine league, but this downgrade in his performance has been impressive, incredible. And it would obviously be a step back, with all due respect, to return to Argentina, even with all due respect to River Plate, which is a world football giant. Madrid doesn't even want to hear about that. And speaking of Argentinians, now, yes, let's go with these documents. I want to show the one that for me later many more appeared, right? But I think that considering how much competition there was among those with the karma of fools, I think this is one of the best. It's a video from a fan. I don't know who this is. A fan, I think he's just a fan, but now let's watch the one from a journalist today in a show, which is amazing. This one is after the final, but this one is before the final. Another one of those incredible things they were saying before the match on July 19th. And well, anyway, just enjoy.
Argentina is playing Spain. I ask you sometimes as an Argentine if you don't have this feeling of calm. Poor thing, having me, there are just hours left. Tomorrow is the world final. Argentina plays against Spain. I don't feel anxious. I'm not nervous. I'm not afraid. Because actually, from Spain, they're all nervous. They're already saying no, because they're surely going to cheat all the time, making everyone nervous. Because they know they're going to get it. The humiliation of the century. Don't jinx it or get ahead of yourself in football. Tomorrow, the Argentine team could have a bad day, and then everyone will call them losers, say they play badly, are useless, and more. The Spanish team is overrated because they're boring. But what's going on? Tomorrow, Argentina plays Spain, and I feel calm. You know why? Because France isn't there. I respected France. Not feared them, but had a lot of respect. If the Argentine national team had to play a final against France, I was very worried. The other day, they had the bad luck of waking up on the wrong side, like I said, just like it could happen to Argentina tomorrow, waking up on the wrong side. They face this Spanish team, which is mediocre. Supposedly, they're first in the ranking. Recky FIFA, I don't know what the hell they do in the Recky FIFA, because they're bad, they can't play worth a damn. Any average team can easily beat Spain, you know? It's not like you have to play against a powerhouse or anything. Any mediocre team can easily beat Spain. They couldn't even beat Cape Verde. So just imagine, they made it to the final by sheer luck, some cosmic coincidence. But you know what? I'm calm. Do you know why? Because we got past England, and that match, that one really made me nervous. And I think it had the whole country nervous. Now we've gotten England out of the way, and these Spaniards who are way overrated, plus they knocked out France, and now it's just Spain left. That's it. Minimize it? Yeah, I'm not minimizing it, because that's just how Spain is. It's one thing to play against England in a final, let's say tomorrow, I don't know what time, at 10 in the morning. And it's another thing to play against France. Against France, you really have to give it your all, really push. Tomorrow, the Spaniards will just play their passing game, score 1 or 2 goals, and the other team gets demoralized. If you shut down that Moroccan guy, the one who's like 1,000 tricks, you shut him down, and the other one with curly hair, you give him a couple of kicks, and that's it. He can't do anything. And let Iker Casillas cry about it, let Iniesta cry about it, let them cry about it on that talk show. They're pathetic clowns, making a circus, yelling to play the match. Let those Argentinians do it. Be quiet, that Galician fool. We Argentinians are the best in the world. And if what I'm saying bothers you, go to therapy, man, and start doing therapy. Otherwise, we won't be able to win. That the Argentinians are thieves. That's what they say. That's what I say.
Spaniards, shut your mouth, eat some cured ham and relax. Life is easy. Sourpuss. Bye. It's just embellishing the contempt because fans from every country always talk nonsense before a match. Everyone always looks down on the opponent. But here's the thing. The number of those who do it is significantly higher in the case of Argentinians. My Argentinian friends and family will have to forgive me since that's just how it is and they admit it. Then there's the embellishment in the contempt and how the message is drawn out. You might say Argentina just has Messi and leave it at that, right? No, England are chokers. Leave it at that. But this extra layer of contempt, like they don't play at all. Like I don't know what. Look at the other one who can't make a pass. Rodri only making horizontal passes. Come on, didn't it hurt them, my goodness? Well, Argentina did that to France and to all the teams Spain faced, but Spain had already dominated France in a historic match. And this guy was saying that, right? And it's that, like I said, that touch of disdain that characterizes them, unfortunately. And guys, I'm showing you this one because for me, it's the best. It's honestly the best of all the ones before the final, but pay attention to what comes next because, of course, with everything that's being said, okay? Look at this guy on Canal 22, Diego Morenzoni. Diego Morenzoni. We're not talking about some geek who turns on the camera and says things. No, here we're talking about a guy who actually has a show. It's unbelievable.
Believe me, and I'm telling the Spaniards who hassle me daily online, they bought the final and the referee. With the decision to appoint a European referee, a Slovenian who has the same nationality as the president of UEFA, that criminal over there. And coincidentally, the referee retired today. Today, the finals referee announced his retirement from football. Cortesal did the same thing, and later Maradona, many years later, told us at the time, he admits that Julio Grondona himself told him, Diego, this is as far as we go. Once again, I insist for my dear friend Humbertito, I wasn't a witness. Diego said it. Those are his words. I don't know what you think, Humberto, but why would he say it if it wasn't true? Hopefully someday we'll find out, so you Spaniards can get rid of that magnificent star, tainted by the dishonor of buying a final. Once again, the Spanish crown stole. This time it wasn't the silver from the Potosi mines. Once again, they killed dreams. This time it wasn't the indigenous peoples who, from Cortes on down, were annihilated if they didn't somehow fall in line behind Spain. So, dear Spaniards, you are prisoners of your history, thieves and murderers. This time, no more and no less, you stole a World Cup from us, and there you have the accomplice. Coincidentally, a Slovenian accused of everything. Not in his own country, but for FIFA, he was a gentleman. But believe me, and I'm saying this to Spaniards.
Well, besides, falsely accusing a referee, Vincic, when it had already been proven that what he was accused of at the time was false and all the charges were later dropped. For those who don't care about the truth, they just say it that way. This one, this little white European guy doesn't have a damn clue about history. That's for starters. He called us thieves and murderers, man. Or descendants of thieves and murderers. Unbelievable. If so, he'd be the first. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's the bad sportsmanship they're showing, not a few, a lot. It's not all of them, but it's many. And that's it. And things go on. They don't accept the fact that Spain made it to that final and gave them a real football lesson with just a 1-0, which is a shame, right? 2 other goals were scored. One was ruled out by millimeters, and the other should have counted. It should have been 3-0, maybe even 5-0. That's the difference between Spain and Argentina in the final, and it remains today. Since they're not learning, nothing will change. Hope everything goes well for you. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, share, hype up the video. It really helps. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.